Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm bringing you an update to my Ravager guides. In this guide, I'll cover all the skills and give my updated opinion on them, as well as show the different skill loadouts that you can choose from. Along with that, I'll explain the basic PvP combos and playstyle of Ravager currently. We've come a long way since the Tier 1 days. There's so much more attack speed and damage in the game. We can now truly play the stealth assassin that we've always wanted. Alright guys, let's go through the skills and our skill loadouts and why we would use what skills and when, depending on what your gear is, what your attack speed is, and what your playstyle, what you're going for. We're going to use the blade block almost all the time. If you're 1v1ing melee, you can put this on to counter stun them and get the upper hand. Valiant Brawl, going to go on most of our skill loadouts. Precision Dash, most of our skill loadouts, pretty obvious. Stunning Blow, always going to be on there. Death Blow is going to be on there. Da Vinci, a lot of the times it's going to be on there. Our attack speed's getting pretty fast now in Tier 3, and with how I've been running things, which I'll go over later in the build section. If you want to go even faster, this is great. If you have other teammates that are running this, you don't have to run this, but this is, kind of preference if you want the speed or not. Guillotine, going to be on every build. Guy Crash can be substituted out. It just depends. I'll go over the replacement from the dagger skills. Devastating Tornado, never use. Willbreaker, never use. Ascending Slash, always use. Paired it with the Guillotine and or the Death Blow if you take the prone damage. Devastating Smash, large scale, I would say. Wouldn't really use this in small scale. It's too easy to dodge roll, but it's not terrible. Blood Devotion, never take. Moonlight Cleave, we don't take. Valiant Brawl is just better. That's our kind of tag-on skill for low cooldown. This just costs too many points and it locks you into an animation. Just kind of awkward. Shadow Strike, always take. Poison, I've been taking with the Mad Sword Dance. We'll go over that interaction after we get through all this. Brutal Incision, we've been phasing this out. It's not impressive anymore. It's okay. You can fit it on there if you wanted to. Instead of Poison, you could do that, but we'll go over the interaction, why I think this is actually better. Vampiric Strike, I don't use this. This is a new one. It just got buffed. We get reduced shield. This could be interesting. Maybe if you have the new daggers instead of the Tevin daggers, but I just don't think that this is going to get used. Mad Sword Dance, we take all the specs on it. It's just a really good damage dealer. We'll go over the interaction after I go through all these. Umbra we'll come back to. Knife Throwing, if you need the heal cut, it's really solid. The slow, the heal cut, it's the strongest heal cut that we can get. You can pair it with Fatal Stigma and just have all the heal cut you'd ever want. Ankle Strike, I've been fitting this on there instead of Da Vinci for Battlegrounds. I'll go over the loadout that I've been personally using with my setup after this. Camouflage, we're going to take that in every loadout. Fatal Stigma, like I was saying, if you need the heal cut. And Smokescreen, I've never been a fan of this. The cooldown's too long. If you have Delu Daggers, you obviously try to fit that in. That's a little bit different, but in my opinion, I just wouldn't deal with the Delu Daggers on a Ravager, and I just don't want to deal with a skill. It's just kind of awkward. It's a long cooldown, and if you really have crossbow dagger issues, you could use this, and it'll help, reduce their damage significantly, because now their crossbow won't go through, but they could still kill you with their dagger. Going through the passives, Robust Constitution, Valiant or Vital Force, Cold Warrior, and Barbarian Dash are going to be the Great Sword standard. Assassin Step, Assassin Instinct, Wrathful Edge, and Shadow Walker. I've been taking Shadow Walker off because I'm not running Evasion or Endurance. I'm just HP stacking, and I've been picking up Victor's Morale to help on my mana issues. It's just kind of, if you're running Evasion, you take this. If you're not, then you can fit in other things. If you want to be a little bit tankier, depending on how you're building, If you're glass, you're not going to get a whole lot of value out of this. If you're evasion, you're obviously going to be evading things, and you need to be getting hit by things for this thing to proc. So this kind of just really makes sense for endurance targets, or if your healer is pocket healing you against a crossbow or two, and you're just getting hit by an obscene amount of things. And that'll just make you tankier for that. In large scale, if you're going to do like Dev Smash, bombing and stuff, Rage and Frenzy is solid. And then Smokescreen and Deluge Daggers and Assassin Stance paired with this Mastery allows you to reset that. And that would be the only time you'd use that. This is the skill loadout that I've been using most of the time recently. I've been running Glass, so we take off Shadow Walker. I've been having some mana issues, so I put on Victor's Morale. If you have enough attack speed and you want to take off Da Vinci's, right now I've been feeling pretty clean as long as I'm killing targets and we get the attack speed from our Assassin Step through the Mastery and we're just going. I don't really feel the need for this, and maybe I can get a bonus. Somebody else is running Da Vinci's in my party, but I just haven't really felt the need for this, so I dropped it for Ankle Strike, and we dropped Frost Gaia or Gaia Crash for Umbral. There's a lot of interactions here. Mad Sword Dance is minimum 12 hits with the AoE here. So 12 hits, all of them proccing poison, and then you have offhands on top of that, and then you can have Umbral, and then anytime one of those crits, it procs Umbral. Anytime any of those hits from anything is heavy attacking, we get Wrathful Edge bonus damage. So this right here is how you deal with crossbows. If you don't have a Cordy Greatsword, we'll get to that later. You'll have the Umbral, the poison, and you can Shadow Strike, and you don't need to crowd control. You can try to stun if you want to. I wouldn't try to ascending them. If the bind fails, if they're moving too fast and desync, anything, you're not going to have time. So a lot of the times I'm just going to Shadow Strike or Precision, depends on the situation, I guess. And we'll just Mad Sword Dance, Valiant Brawl, Poison. You put in so much damage with these multi-hits and these, Umbral and Poison. This just has so much damage into it. Every dagger in the game can do this, and it's a lot of damage. So you're having crossbow issues, dealing with crossbow daggers killing you too fast, and you can't catch them and lock them down. This is how you deal with it. If you have the Cordy Greatsword, you can run Uncharged Deathblow, and it does the similar thing. If this heavies, it can just outright kill them. If it doesn't heavy, you still have the Cordy damage that follows, which is 8 poison ticks, and those poison ticks can apply poison, and on the poison target, if any of those poison hits heavy, that can proc the Venomous Edge, and anytime they crit, it'll also proc the Umbral. So it's kind of the same thing. Gives you 2 ways to take out crossbows, and or you can use them both if they're a little bit tankier. So that's kind of what I've been running. I like the ability to have the big old guillotine charge, just in case. For the fast skills, we can stun Death Blow, I can ankle strike Death Blow, I can knock down Death Blow. We're taking the knockdown damage, otherwise you won't have the 30% increased damage. You only get that on the stun normally, so make sure if you're going to knock down Death Blow, you take that skill spec as well. The ankle strike is really nice too against gladiators because it does have 96% chance to apply instead of the standard 80% that a lot of CC has. So it'll burn, or it'll work against some of their resistance a little bit better than these other ones. And the other synergy there is the offhand activation. You get 30% more offhand with this skill spec, allowing you to pre-pop your buffs here. You can engage with Shadow Strike, Ankle Strike, Mad Sword Dance with more offhand, which is going to hit more times for more damage, and it's going to stack more Thundercloud effects to reduce their endurance even more. Then you can Valiant Brawl and apply the poison. If they're kind of tanky, you can do the same thing, and then you'd Valiant Brawl, stun, then Death Blow, and then go from there. It's just, there's a lot of weird combinations here. There are a lot of interesting combinations here that you can do in a few different orders depending on the target. So we'll move on to a little bit of a target dummy in target dummy test and break down all these little skill combos that you can break this down into. All right, let's do a quick rundown over the few different combos. Starting with the crossbow combos, if there's crossbow dagger, like I was talking about, you're going to buff up and just Shadow Strike, Mad Sword Dance, Valiant Brawl, and reapply the poison. Try to burst as hard as you can because they're going to be moving. It's going to be hard to land a knockdown on them. You could possibly stun them, but the charge skills are just going to be too slow. If you have Cordy Greatsword, you can run Uncharged Death Blow and do kind of the same thing. If I see a crossbow and I do have Cordy, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to buff up. I'm going to jump in there. I'm going to Death Blow, and you can do it in a few different orders. Death Blow, Valiant Brawl is probably what I should have done there, and then Mad Sword Dance. Those three skills are just usable on the move before the crossbow gets too far. Mad Sword Dance will follow them a little bit, so that's how you do with crossbows. When it comes to an endurance target, and specifically a gladiator with the ankle strike collision chance that I was talking about, you want to knock them down to give you more offhand, and you're going to shred their endurance more. So this is kind of what that looks like. You shred their endurance, you buff your damage with Valiant Brawl, you can reapply poison if you wanted to, you can stun, Death Blow, Valiant Brawl again. If they're still not dying, you can knock them down, guillotine them to finish it off. And with our attack speed, we just have so much time to fit all of that in. But ideally, you have a bunch of damage in Battlegrounds from the buffs and stuff, and you don't have to go that far on one specific target. And if they are too tanky, generally you want to avoid them and only kill the targets that you're killing in a few skills. Otherwise, you're going to put yourself in a weird position. All right, so I'm going to do a quick rundown of my quest log here. Just a little bit of a tour. Current in-game gear. I'll try to keep this up to date with what I'm currently running. Got a returning player section if you don't have heroics. A little bit of a budget friendly, and then a prediction of where you should be going and what you should prioritize. Glass hit builds would I prioritize right now and recommend, especially if you have Tevin daggers. And then I've ordered these in a general order, best to worst, top down. So don't hold this too strongly, but in general, if you have this cloak, you can run heroic pants. I prefer the heroic pants over the heroic gloves because you do get more attack speed. You can compare the builds, but they're going to be like 7 or 8% attack speed behind this setup, and attack speed is BIS. I also have earrings on my builds because I find them to be better. You do get more base damage at the cost of like 2%, 3% attack speed, depending on the build. And then maybe like 50 hit or 50 heavy attack. It's really minor stuff, and we're talking like 2 to 3% more base damage depending on where you're at, which might not sound like a lot, but the whole reason that we're using the heroic greatsword compared to like one thing that people are doing is Cordy Greatsword. If you went heroic daggers in Cordy Greatsword, unupgraded, that's coming later, you're like 7% damage behind. So I find the base damage here is actually worth it. And then step 2 of this, the second reason, I have 2 ring slots now that are freely interchangeable that currently I can adjust, turn my hit rings into crit rings, heavy attack rings, just more damage, and get even more base damage, because this doesn't have that much base damage, allowing us to even further more into our base damage. And any future rings, if heroics are still around, are going to become even better than these. The earrings are such a boring slot that there's no way, unless they recreate like the normal stats on earrings, they're just so boring with the side heavy attack, evasion, whatever. Like, earrings, in my opinion, are just best, and that's why. If you've already invested into something else, just keep going with it. It's not that big of a deal. So we have the glass hit builds. We have some crit builds if you prefer that. I think the hit builds are better. They're better suited for Ravager. I do have a magic evasion build. In my opinion, I just would rather go glass. I don't think you're going to feel that tanky with this. If you don't have Tevin daggers, you could do the melee evasion. If you do have Tevin daggers, I don't recommend it. Feels like a big waste, but This is kind of the only time I would run melee evasion is if you don't have Tevin daggers. Doesn't mean that you can't. You have to run melee evasion. That's the only time I would run it. And then I do have PvE builds towards the bottom. I'm not super min-max PvE. I don't really care that much about it. So if you do know somebody that does Ravager super min-max PvE and that's what they do, follow their stuff or at least compare it to mine. But this should be pretty solid for PvE. It's definitely going to do damage. And this is the Gladiator build that I'm doing. In-game, without Stellarite, without food buffs, I'm getting a minute 4-second dummy timer with this. So good enough for me. Ravager's like 10% behind it. So you definitely don't have to go Gladiator, but I'm doing just fine with this right now. So that's my quest log. If you have any questions, ask in the comments below or stop by my Twitch stream. That'll be in the link in the description. And yeah, I guess if you like the video, leave a like, subscribe. See you guys in the next one. Peace.